Alright guys, in today's video we go over installing Unitronic's new flex fuel kit for the Mk8 R, and that's going to be including the multi-port fuel injection setup as well as the ethanol content sensor that is integrated into the car. The car's a monster. It feels way better than it's ever felt. It launches way harder than it's ever launched, and I think that we can really attribute that to the work that Unitronic's done on the GPX file for these cars. It's really taking advantage of what the TCU has to offer without being tuned. Line out of the way, and gently wiggle. Slow is the name of the game, boys. Alright, so we just made our first hole here, and we've got a bunch of stuff that we're going to have to trim out of the hole and clean it up a little bit. But the hole is nice, clean, and straight through. So when you do drill this, do it on the slow setting, take your time, and go easy. If it walks, if it jumps around, if anything weird happens, that hole can be elongated and give you problems. Don't have problems. So now, that's not supposed to happen. Okay, guy. It's pulling itself through. Cool. Alright. Jeez Louise. So, even though it may seem like it, drilling the holes for the injectors is not the part that's sketchy. This is. We've got to install fittings that are going to be used to secure the multi-port injection fuel rail to the manifold. There's two ways to go about this: the modification way or the replacement way. Replacement way is grab a European manifold. Those cars come with MPI. They've got these fittings installed from the factory. They're not going anywhere. The alternative method, you gotta drill and then use some self-tapping threaded inserts. So we're going to get this drilled open and hope everything goes to plan. Make sure you're lined up in the hole. Alright, now when you get through, you want to have a lot of control so that you don't puncture the manifold. Because if it does walk through, it's going to pull itself in, and if you're not hanging on and you're not doing it right, it will eat that manifold right up. Our hole's made. I'm going to go through and just make sure they are finished up. Okay. And see, I even just barely nicked that, and it took a good chunk out. So do show a lot of care there because it's really easy to touch that, and it's pretty easy to go through it too with just a little bit of force. We're gonna grab our heat gun and we're gonna make this plastic warm, not melty hot, but warm, so that when we start threading in these inserts, they go in and then the plastic will shrink back around them. If you do this with the plastic cold, there's a chance that it will essentially start drilling the plastic and take material out instead of bite into it. So I highly recommend giving it some heat to make it a little malleable and less brittle. Don't do too much. You don't want to warp the manifold, you don't want to melt plastic, but you definitely want to get them warm to the touch. So it's warm, and we are going to go ahead and that is started, and now we can take it the rest of the way with the ratchet. And once it bottoms out, you'll just go ahead and slap it back and take your nut out, or your bolt out here. Now you've got this sitting flush and stuck in there, and it's not coming out. Just like that, we have an MPI ready manifold. Know that you've just made a bunch of plastic shavings. And realistically, engine could probably eat them without trouble. But to save yourself any potential problems, go ahead and blow out the manifold. We take off the throttle body and all additional things to make it easier and the unit flow better so that we can blast it out. But just to give you a quick example, we haven't done this yet, and you can see here, we've got good pieces of plastic in here that we don't want going into the engine. So, we're going to blast it out. Now, these air dividers that go into the head, they've got little tabs on them, and they match up with the intake manifold itself. So when you put this in there, you don't want to put too much pressure on it. You kind of want to let it slide in and fall into place for the most part. There's our two connectors that out of the way. Get them into the bracket so that they don't get bound. And then this is where we want it. It is sitting flush against everything here, and everything is fitting perfectly. Over here we've got our harness that's going to connect to the flat position sensor detail. And when that gets plugged in, it'll click, it'll snap in the lock, and then this can be tucked away underneath the manifold. So now with this out, there are locking tabs around the base here, and we're going to need to pull this up to be able to plug in our power wire. And that is how you want it. And we'll be able to pin in a power wire to the bottom of the fuse box, and we'll continue with pinning the ECU harness. So where we're going to be running the wires to the fuse box is going to be on the what's called SB6 fuse, but on the actual fuse block it shows F6. So just keep that in mind. The way that I'd recommend doing this is going behind the current wire so that we can actually zip tie it to the harness and make everything look nice and neat. But then F6 is going to be next to this 30 amp fuse here in this blank slot. Now we've got to get this power wire into the open port here. So if we flip this over and look underneath it, we should see that guy right there. And you'll see that there are power wires hooked up through all of them except for the one that we need. So we just need to add that one. And we'll get this positioned into its hole. And before plugging it all the way in, go ahead and look through the top and make sure that you're in the right place. Where SB6 is, you'll see that our connector is down there. And when we push it all the way up, it will lock. Plug, nice confirming click, and we'll see that it is in the correct hole. We've got the power that is from the factory and our power to the MPI. Alright, so the first thing that we're going to need to do is get the zip tie off that is holding our harness to the connector shell. We're going to open it all the way. Once it's in its open position, we're going to get something right here, and we want to pry up on it and push out. And this cover will come off in its entirety with the lever. So we'll set this aside, make sure to keep everything, and try not to break this. So the next thing that we're going to do is strip back this installation a bit so that we have some play with the wires. We're going to release our lock, and then we'll go through what position each one's in and the best way to access them and keep track of what you're doing. Fine, 24, 25, and if we look at this, we've got 1 and 85. 21 and 105, so 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. So 24 is going to be green, 25 will be blue, 45 is going to be right across, 24 will be right below that. One more to do, which is gray. 50. So this guy here, it's 50. So we've got where our wires go color coded, and so the plan and the process will be as follows. We've got to remove the lock, and then in each one of these 5 slots there's a blank in the connector. That blank has to be removed. Now, the best way to do that is to get everything kind of loosey-goosey before you remove your lock, and get so that your wires can be easily accessed and manipulated. You ultimately want to be able to have access to the lowest point, which is going to be the hardest to get to, and we'll start with that one. So the idea is that we're going to gain access to the area that one will be at, which is going to roughly be back in here. You can see the blanks. There's 49 and 50. So the bottom one by the white wire is 50, and when we push that out, we'll grab it with a pair of pliers and then insert the wire that we're installing. Now the blanks have locks on them, and you need to put the wire in the same orientation that you removed it in. So first things first, we're going to pop the lock and gently remove it. Now this does need to be kept. Set it to the side so it doesn't get lost. I have had the pleasure of dropping one down into a place that took me a long time to find, simply because I set it down in the wrong place and it fell. So we're going to gently push this blank out. You see it doesn't take any force at all to get it moving. And right here, you'll see it sticking out there. So what we'll do is we'll get our gray wire ready and prepared to go in. We'll move the wires out of the way so that it's accessible. We'll pull that out. We'll put the wire in the same way that it came out, and then we'll move on to the next one. I'm going to spread this open like that, and gently go in here, grab this guy, pull him out. You'll see that that lock is facing up in this position. So we've got our gray wire here. We want our locking tab to be facing up. And we'll find our hole that we just took that blank out of. We'll get the wire lined up and put inside of it, and then gently push it in. Now we'll go all the way up. You should hear a click, just like that. And then if you look at your marked location, you'll see that the wire is fully seated inside. And it's good to go now, and we can move on to the next one. All wires are in and have been fully secured with the clips. Now we put the lock back in and make sure that it will lock. So with the addition of some of these, may get a little tricky. Click, everything is locked fully in place now. And we are ready to start melding the harnesses together. And what I mean by that is we need to get everything wrapped up so that it fits nicely in that cover, and so it's nice and secure. We're using some Tessa tape to do that. Take the cover, and it goes in on the bottom first and latches down on these two hooks, and then it will snap into place. Everything should sit nice flush. Close up the top and get another zip tie put on there. Alright, so we have completed the actual wiring for this. Now we just have to get everything tidied up for the most part, as far as all of the loose wire. We'll get the ECU back in place, get everything plugged in there so that we can see the finalized place where everything will actually be sitting, and get these wires tidied up to that, trim up our zip ties, and then finish reassembly. We've got the new UniFLEX fuel kit installed, including the new MPI setup and the flex fuel sensor. Everything's working as it should. We're about to go have some fun. We've got the 93 octane GBX flex fuel file installed. This should be a hoot. Here we go. That felt like it should.
Yeah, it did. Felt good.
Yeah. Naturally, I'm tempted to try launch.
Yep.
Seems happy.
That was very good.
Set. Works.
That was it.
Ready? That's cool. It won't auto upshift. So I just hit the rev limiter there. But that works quite well. With a proper boost gauge, I'd feel a lot more comfortable building boost than watching the artificial gauge. Even though Unitronic recalibrates it so that it should be much more precise. But I'm not a big analog gauge guy. I really like watching the needle sweep. But yeah, that is pretty cool. Alright guys, that about wraps up the UniFLEX install on our Mk8 R. Now, with this setup on the 93 file with E85, you're going to be getting really close to 500 horsepower on this bad boy. And this is the chart that Unitronic represents with their power figures. We're going to go to the dyno and get our own numbers just to see how this thing performs, and we'll probably do it on a blend of different fuels ranging from 93, E30, E60, and then full E85 to give a good representation of what each fuel type is going to do for you. But we really hope you liked the video, and we'll be back with some more soon. Like and subscribe. We'll see you next time.